I saw where that road was leading me, and it was to a very, very dark, cold, and lonely place. And I decided to do something about it. I went into audio full time, zero chance to look back because I was just going forward, just barreling forward as fast as I could. I kicked those doors open, this is Sparta style.
Doing anything in LA is definitely hard.
I have to focus very much so on the day-to-day, more so than the long term. So
when you found yourself in that situation, what was the spark or the trigger?
It was kind of funny. I did all the things right.
Yeah.
I did all the things right in that I sat down and I actually...
All right, so welcome to one of the first episodes we have here on the Fortin YouTube channel. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, and I have traveled here all the way from Southern California to, I guess, Northern California, Sacramento, to the beautiful studio of Stephen Ward, fantastic guitar content creator, a huge inspiration to me, and honestly, one of the people who set the tide for myself in the world of guitar content. Ladies and gentlemen, and everything in between, Stephen Ward.
Well, thank you. Thank you. That was a really, really kind intro. Thank you so much. It's I have a hard time sometimes with compliments like that. Not that I don't take them, but sometimes I'm like, oh, did I do that? Is that what I did? Like, I don't feel like I did that sometimes, but I appreciate that.
Well, I have to say, like, when I met you, I met you on stage. So we met at the URM Summit down in, I think, 2018.
Yes.
And I was there to film you. I was there to film your content, your presentation. And aside from that was my first impression of you. Someone is like a prestigious working individual who cut their teeth down in, down in LA. And I know doing anything in LA is definitely hard. And it's not easy to do, especially in the way you did it. I know we talked about your story in previous pieces of content we've been in together. And if you want to talk about that again, like, I'm more than happy to have space for that.
Yeah.
But to be honest, that is what kind of set foot for me and gave me the inspiration to find myself working in the position I am today. So I don't think I would have the gas if it wasn't for you. I know this is more gas, more giving you the compliments, but
dude, my head's going to be just out of the frame, at this point.
We need it to be like that. It's okay. We shot wide, so we can deal with that.
It's like, it's comforting to know that what I've done can help other people find it within themselves to do something for them, something similar in a way. Like, because to me, like, just to briefly touch on my history, like, I worked at a guitar shop for like 11, 12 years. I really wasn't doing anything for myself. Like, I had no dreams, no aspirations. I had some like music stuff here and there. I had a couple of like half-assed projects, and there was a certain point where I just I saw where that road was leading me, and it was to a very, very dark, cold, and lonely place. And I decided to do something about it, which, I went into audio full time, just, pedal to the metal. I had zero chance to look back because I was just going forward, just barreling forward as fast as I could. Because, I was working on a musical project and I had suffered an injury. I couldn't play guitar for the better part of a year, so I got into audio, and that sort of like sparked that love for audio in general. My shop that I worked at closed, so that,
new doors opened.
So new doors opened. Well, I kind of kicked those doors open, this is Sparta style. Nice. And I think it was just that I motivated myself to do better by myself. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do this for me because this is what I want. This is something that I can build into a business and a career and actually have some stability instead of going paycheck to paycheck. I'll let you know when that happens, but it's,
well, the thing that I find fascinating about what you said, it's that you did it by yourself. Like that motivation, usually a lot of, like, you'll notice in the music industry, there's a lot of like group projects, there's bands, there's people in recording teams. Usually someone has like a partner, a like someone to keep them accountable.
Yes.
And sometimes like we have those accountability groups or those people who keep us on check outside. It might be our girlfriends, it might be our wives, and it might be sometimes our bandmates or just people we meet in online groups. But for you, how did you motivate yourself?
It's interesting because some people have like there's two ways that I feel that you can kind of motivate yourself. Like I kind of touched on it a little bit ago, a few months ago. And some people can have a goal, right? They think, okay, you know what? I'm going to be the best producer, ever on the West Coast, or I'm going to be the best mix engineer. I'm going to be this thing, and then they work backwards, right?
Yeah.
Like, okay, if I have this goal and I want to be this goal in like 10 years, then at year 9 I want to have this. At year 8 I want to have this, and they'll kind of deconstruct that path to their goal, right? I did the opposite, like I said. So I was fascinated suddenly with like self-help, self-development, business books. Like I really just consumed so much material on how to grow myself because I was feeling just so stagnant, bored, and just kind of like antsy. Like I wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing. Like I had this potential, but it wasn't really going anywhere. So there was an exercise that I heard from somebody that it's like, okay, well, if you allow yourself, your bad habits, all of the things that you dislike about yourself to take over. Are you lazy? Do you procrastinate? Do you drink? Do you smoke? Do you do these things that are, can potentially be inherently like bad for your health and your mental health and et cetera. Like if you let those things go, what does your life look like a year from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now? And I did that kind of mental exercise for myself. And I was like, okay, well, that's obviously not what I want.
Yeah.
But I'm letting it happen anyway, just day by day, because I'm not thinking of the long-term consequences of my inaction or actions.
Yeah.
So I decided like, okay, long-term goals don't work for me sometimes. I find that if I've set long-term goals, they aren't salient enough for me. They're not present enough at all times to keep me motivated.
It feels like a fantasy.
It feels like, exactly. It becomes something so intangible that it becomes not real, and it becomes just like another thing in the background for me. I have to focus very much so on the day-to-day, more so than the long term. So instead of saying like, oh, I have this goal for 10 years from now, it's like, okay, I know that today I want to get this, that, and the other done. If I don't get it done, I can work on it tomorrow. Yeah. And then every day it was about just putting in the work as much as I could, as consistently as I could. And then I will see the trajectory go up, even though I don't know necessarily where that might lead me, which is honestly kind of led me to bounce back and forth between a lot of different things.
Yeah.
But that's okay, because I like learning. I like educating myself. I like being involved with a lot of different types of projects because my interests vary considerably. Yeah.
So when you found yourself in that situation, what helped like to go into this full time? What was the spark or the trigger? Was it the guitar shop closing down and you just saying like, hey, I want to do this and I want to be involved in music in any way possible? Or was it something that just kind of slowly became a building or a bigger part of your life?
It was kind of funny. Before the guitar shop closed down, I had started, like I said, I had an injury. So I had just finished recording a full length album, and basically I had some tendonitis in the back of my hand, couldn't hold on to a guitar neck. Had to let go of like 15 guitar students. So it was pretty bummer thing. But I kept myself busy. I kept myself involved with music, and I ended up getting some courses online to learn more about audio, because I was like, okay, well, when my hand heals, I'm gonna have to send this off to get it mixed. So maybe if I just learn a little bit about mixing, I can then communicate with the mix engineer, the mastering engineer, and really kind of tell them what my vision is for the ultimate product. Right. But once I started learning about it, there's something kind of clicked, and I was like, well, this is fun. It's fun. It's interesting. It's challenging. It's a new thing to kind of learn and integrate into what I like to do. Plus, it kind of kept me from a pretty dark place, because I love creating music.
Yeah.
Through mixing, I could still create music, even though I didn't have the hands to work my guitar and make music that way. Like I could still work with music and create music through that. And I actually had like, I loved it so much that I did all the things right.
Yeah.
I did all the things right in that I sat down and I actually planned out 2 years. Like, and this was hard for me, but I planned out a 2-year getaway plan where I was like, okay, at 6 months, we're going to have these KPIs, key performance indicators with the shop. So that way I can bring on additional help. Once I bring on additional help, they'll take on these responsibilities. So then, 6 months down the line further, I'll have these KPIs. So that way I can bring on additional help, and I'll take a more background role where it's just managerial and I'm not the only one. Like at that point, I was the only person on the floor ever. Yeah. Like, I had some interns, but not like actual employees that I was managing. Yeah. So I had this whole 2-year scheme planned out, and I had it documented. I had like this whole like 2 or 3 page paper I was going to give to the boss and be like, John, this is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to work it. You fucking give me the budget to make this happen so I can make this happen, dude. And I was just going to I was so jazzed on it. And I remember I had finished up the document. I think it was like on a Thursday or a Friday. That was on a Thursday. I went home, finished it on a Thursday. I came in on Friday and I was like, you know what? I'm going to give them to him on Monday, because most people like getting stuff on Mondays, whatever. Like I was like, okay, well, I'll just hold off on Monday and, maybe read through it once or twice more. And then Friday rolls around the next day and my boss comes down and he's like, Steve, we need to talk. He only speaks and yells. So, he only yells. He never speaks in quiet volume. So he's like, Steve, we need to talk. I'm done with the business. We're shutting the doors end of October. So you can either find a new job or you can take over the business, like whatever you want to do, just let me know. And I'm like,
yeah, that's a lot.
Sweet. All right. Well, I sure as fuck don't want the business. So I guess I'm out of the job. And it took me a bit to kind of like mull it over. And ultimately what happened was I was like, okay, I can either find a desk job where I could then enact my 2-year plan, and kind of overlap into the audio industry like I want to, or I could just go balls to the wall and try and make it happen as best I can, which that's what I did. I had like 6 months worth of savings in my bank account. My parents were letting me stay at their house, so no rent to really, worry about, just had some bills. And some credit card debt, but otherwise, like I was like, okay, I can do this for 6 months. Yeah, let's see what we can do. Let's see what we can pull off. And I managed to get enough income to make that actually into a full-time thing. Like I had in about, I think it was at the 6-month mark, I had replaced all of my income from the shop with independent audio work.
Nice.
And I believe that might be about when we met, because I came to the second summit to talk about my journey into doing like the full-time audio and replacing my income and, how hard I had worked to get to that point. And I mean, like I'm simplifying the journey significantly. There was a lot of things that I definitely did not do right for myself during that process, but I think we can get to the burnout probably a little bit later. But yeah, that's
because the thing that I have to note, like with a lot of people, like say guitar players, like say drummers or something, if you break your hand, if you hurt yourself in a way that prevents you from expressing yourself, it's like a lot of singers I know, when they get a cold, they don't just deal with the cold. They deal with like immense depression. They deal with like more anxiety. They feel like someone is putting a cork on their mouth, like someone actually shutting them up. I mean, no pun intended, their throat's actually going out. Yeah. But when you mess up your hand and you find a way to keep going, the tenacity or the feeling of like, when you find a way around something that inhibits you, I feel like it does something to you mentally. Like, and
it does something to you because my identity up to that point was I'm a guitar player. I am a guitar player. I would sit behind the desk at the guitar shop, guitar right within arm's reach at all times. And that's who I saw myself as. So once that got stripped away from me, like, cause I really tried, like, you know, I was doing like stretching. I was trying to do like physical therapy stuff that I'd look up, or like, I actually had like physical, like physio people, like clients through my work, like giving me advice on how to deal with it. But it's like, at the end of the day, it's just like, well, you just need to rest.
Yeah.
Like there's no way to heal it while you're still doing the actions that incurred that injury. So having to set the guitar down for a year, like that really kind of challenged my vision of myself, how I saw myself, how I identified myself as. Like, it's like, okay, like who am I? And I'm sure that's probably like a little dramatic, but like it's
I don't think it's dramatic at all, because a lot of people, like, let's be real. We go on Instagram bios, we go on TikTok, we go on YouTube, and people have to identify themselves immediately. And to be honest, a lot of people just go with either what they do for work, for income, or what they do primarily as a hobby.
Yes.
Or primarily as what they want to transition into in full-time work. So you'll see often, like, for me, it's like, I wake up to sleep, drummer, guitar player, producer.
Yes.
Or something like that, or content creator, or anything that just kind of resembles like, hey, I have a camera and I play instruments. Something that summarizes that. Like, what do you have for your, what's it called? For your taglines?
My bio, it's probably guitarist, mixing, content creator, something along those lines. I think that's generally covers the majority of what I do.
So when people, I feel like, especially with like social media, we're set into labeling ourselves, whether we like it or not. We're like psychologically saying, I'm a guitar player, I'm a content creator. And then we self-identify and then project onto peers or heroes or influencers who do the same. And we go, how can we emulate this? And when that becomes your identity for, I would say, more than 4 years or something like that, because that's what high school does to you, you inherit those traits. And when that identity is shattered, because your life is much longer than 4 years, let's be honest.
Yeah.
You lose your footing. And I found myself in that journey. And I feel like a lot of people who are going into the content creation game or going to want to do full-time music, they're going to realize they're going to have to pivot the same way you did.
Yes.
And that is not something that was easy for me. And I'm probably sure that wasn't easy for you. As you said, like, you went through actual physical, like my left hand's going out too, just because of all the rim shots and all the, so I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
And I guess that leads me to like one of the main questions I wanted to ask you about. What do you think it takes to be a content creator nowadays in 2022?
I think at the core of it, I was thinking about this earlier. I think at the core of like the want to be a content creator, just in general, like you have to have an intrinsic motivation that's beyond anything. That's just, I want to be noticed. Right.
So it has to be more than I want likes and attention.
Yes. It has to be intrinsically motivated, internally motivated by wanting to give something to somebody else.
Yeah.
Because, okay, so as a musician, you write music to entertain other people. Right. And that's always the hope, right? Like you want, like, I write this song and I hope that people bang their heads to it. Awesome. However, that seems to have, like, I think for especially a lot of younger musicians, turned in the opposite direction. It's like, I'm writing music for you to like me. Like,
I see.
To me, it's the same thing as, and I'm sure like everybody can relate to this. Everyone who's in the music industry could probably relate to this. It's the same thing as somebody adding you on Facebook, not sending you a message, and then immediately like sending you a page invite to like their page.
Yeah. It's one of the most peeving things that I've learned.
It's super annoying. I have like, I think I have like 450 plus page invites. And then there's like a backlog of friend invites that's at least like 800 or 900 people long. And I'm like, I just get so overwhelmed. I'm just like, I don't want to look at your like profiles. Unless I like it, like genuinely like know who you are, even just peripherally. We may not be friends, but if I know who you are, I'll add you. But like, if you're just a random person that adds me, like,
it's
like,
hard.
Message me or something. Like, why are you reaching out to me? Like I'm a person and I have time. Like my time is important to me, you know? So like, if you want to start like a relationship and a conversation, I'm open to that. But if it's you're looking for what I can give you, then that's problematic.
Yeah, it's strange unless you're directly like if it's like a pager like offering a service. I'm like, hey, I want you to mix my song. But even then, it's like, let's be honest, like cut the bullshit.
Yeah.
I've noticed that Facebook, at least in our industry, has become like LinkedIn.
Yeah.
It's strange. I understand why. Like I understand why. I in my earlier career of music have been the asshole who's liked everyone's page, and then I'll wait a week. I'll try to let it settle, and then I'll ask for that page invite. And before the follow for follow thing, let's support each other. Like when you start out, it makes sense in your head, but then you realize like what I grew to learn. It's like, what am I about to give this person to make them want to be like even associated, related, or relevant to me? Not even my friend, but like that's the hardest part. That I think the balance, because people think that they're giving to the world by showing off what they can do. Not there's more context to that.
Of course, there's always more context, but that's exactly it. Like you have to, you know, going back to the question, it's like you have to want to genuinely just give somebody an experience, or if you have a skill, like a specialized skill, you want to have to like, you know, give these people like tips and tricks, or just like teach them how to do that skill. Like you have to want to be able to give before you can receive anything.
Yeah, and that receiving is a while.
Right.
It takes a long time.
It takes a long time, and you have to not expect it. Like otherwise you're going to just build resentment. You're going to end up like those people that it's like, oh, well, I put out songs like, like 2 a month, but I still don't get any traction. It's like, well, what are you doing to actually connect with the people? Like, are you just putting your music up on your page and just expecting people to come to you? Like, or are you like going on to forums and having conversations with people? Like, are you starting up dialogues with others? Are you doing collaborations with others?
Or are you even going like boots on the ground to the shows to be a part of like your local music community?
Yeah.
That I think is very challenging, because like I think when people are impressed with themselves, they project that onto others. Like, let's be honest, we've written something. Like I've written something recently. I'm like, yeah, it's so good. I'm so jazzed on it. And you're hoping that you being jazzed on yourself, I'm not saying you, but people, when they put that stuff out, they're hoping that other people are as excited about it as they are. And it's
a hard lesson. It's a hard lesson to learn.
It's like heartbreak at the same time.
Yes.
Like I always do this like thing, and no one looks back at me the same way I'm like currently looking. It's because they don't. Sometimes, like when I'm writing with someone, we look at each other and I'm like, okay, this is it. But these moments where you're like, is that good? Yeah.
That to me is one of the hardest lessons to learn as a content creator, is that you can make the best piece of content ever, but once you put it out for people to consume, you're no longer the judge on whether that's the best piece of content ever. Like that is the eye of the beholder. That's the person watching it. If they love it, then they'll love it. But if they don't like it, then that's not for you to say. Like, and I know that frustration too, because there's definitely like, there's pieces that I made for like Neural, my last gig, where I literally just put the song together in a couple of hours just because I needed to make something. Yeah. Right. And it's like, oh, this is just a demo piece. It's sort of whatever. Like I didn't think it was like anything particularly special, but people fucking loved it. Yeah. It's like, oh, I guess that was good. I guess they did like that better than the thing that I put 20 hours into and, thought like, oh man, I'm using these cool chord progressions and these awesome drum beats and blah, 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 blah. Like, it's like, okay, cool. I am no longer the judge of how good it is once it's out.
Yeah, I can say the same story. I think one of the most recently more successful, like way later in its video career life, is the Orange Does It Grind video. Oh, sure. When I'm just using the grind with the, like, I kind of threw the song together really quick. And I think I like rushed the production. I was like pretty unhappy with the sentiment of how I did it, but it was my first. I was like, okay, this is my first time doing this style and going through, and then it just popped off way later than I thought it would. And it was way more well received than I thought it ever would. Cause I was like, this is just like a playful thing. And then like I spent like 30 minutes on like the automation stuff where I feel like, wow, I'm really able to like bring something new to the table here. Maybe some groundbreaking. People don't like laptops on stage, but now I can show how to really make it work. And it's intimidating. It's like new. It's not really, I don't know if like creating quick content sometimes leads to something that's more comfortable for people to digest. Do you feel like that was the case with your piece, or do you feel like it was just something that worked?
Well, I think it's just something that worked. I think it's like I created a quick piece and I underestimated what it was because I felt like I could do better than that piece. But really that's just my ego talking. Like that's just me going like, you know, it's like, it's whatever. It's an okay piece, but then people actually really like it. And it's like, okay, I have to step back and readjust my expectations, my perceptions. Cause it's like, okay, well, you know what? Sometimes people just like a simpler song to like vibe with. Like, cause metal, especially when you get to like the progressive side and you get these like interesting timings and different accents and like this like kind of funky feeling to your song, it's like people may not vibe with it because they don't have that consistent element to drive the beat, right? Like that's why I've always said like the reason why Meshuggah I feel is so much more approachable than a lot of like these like progressive bands now that have like aped their style is because they always had that China or the hat,
something else,
because there's 4/4 beat always going in the background.
Because you could always just do this.
You know, so it's like you had that consistency. And sometimes that's all people want out of their music. And that, you know, and that's okay too. Like you have to be okay with like being like, you have to be okay with just creating music and not expecting it to be your opus.
Yeah. And your magnum opus.
Yeah.
Yes,
exactly.
It was funny. Like on the way here, I was thinking about it. And I think I've said this to you outside of here, but we as musicians, we as creators, we as artists, if you want to be so bold, we don't get to choose who likes our stuff.
Yes.
We can try and target the type of people. We can be like, I like this, so people like this. So like you can try to group yourself and try to put that out there. But once you put it out there, whether it's a video, it's a piece of content, or it's like, or even a picture, you don't get to choose who likes it. And you don't get to be entitled to which audience you want either.
Yep.
And that's the craziest thing that I think I've realized most recently. That you can try to make something and no matter what you do, people like, I'm sure everyone will find something likable in any piece of content. Let's be 100% honest here. There's something for everyone. But if you want a certain person to like want the thing that you make, it's very hard.
Yes.
And it employs a lot of strategy. And the thing that I've always found strange with like people who've been in our positions is that we're not making it sometimes just for us. We're trying to make it for people who already have been there, or people who have already been watching like a platform. People who have already have an expectation. For instance, my journey with Fortin has always been like, hey, Fortin's had a history of creating crazy things. Now I have big shoes to fill. And now I'm trying to create stuff that people who I think will like the content. And I'm trying to like put a meld of what I would like from the channel. But I feel like that perspective is quite unique. And I've talked to you quite a bit on it. And how do you think you approach that, especially if you're looking for a job in the industry?
That's a really good question because it depends on this, like the trying to find a job in the industry aspect. It's like for me, when I found my job, it was like I was basically making content for myself. In a way, because I was my own demographic. Because I'm a bedroom, basically a bedroom guitarist, producer, mixer, whatever. Like I make stuff at my home. So it was really easy for me to do like the research and learn it and then be able to turn around and teach to people. I think you kind of brushed on something that was really interesting as far as like targeting your content towards a specific audience. It's kind of tricky tricky territory in that because you almost border on being disingenuous.
Yeah.
When you do that, because if you are, going towards a demographic that's like completely opposite end of the spectrum, like if I'm a metal guitar player and I'm trying to reach like, pop punk audience, like I don't think that that's going to go over super well because I'm not in that.
Yeah, you're not in that scene.
Yeah, I'm not in that scene. Like people are going to look at me and be like, bro, that's not how you do it. Like there's like certain things that people can see, little like tells.
Yeah.
Like,
or like, who's this?
Yeah. Who the fuck is this? Who's this guy? Being genuine to yourself and being just kind of honest about what type of content you want to make is always going to be for the best. And I think it's also important to say, like, don't be afraid to not follow the trends that you're seeing online already.
Yeah.
Like, because honestly, like, trend chasing is one of like, I think the biggest axes to like, newer YouTube and Instagram players, because when you see a trend that's taking off on YouTube and you see bigger creators doing it, you're almost likely never to capitalize on it because if you're a small,
it's already happened.
It's already happened. It's already going to pass by the time anybody even remotely notices your content on it. Mm-hmm. So like you have to be the person that says like, okay, well, they're doing this. I'm just going to continue doing what I feel is right for the people that I want to speak to, and then maybe that gets taken up. Maybe you just do a little bit more research and try and figure out what the next trend is going to be and try and get a jump on it.
I think trends revolve so quickly that if you're doing something like already, it's eventually going to land on something that is at home for you. And it's like, sometimes I've like created pieces of content that I've just sat on and then just went like, I'm just not inspired to put this out.
Yeah.
And then something's rolling around and musically, like all of a sudden it aligns like, yes, post now. Like I've got this, this is it. And like the inspiration comes back. And I think like a lot of people also don't have, a lot of people don't want to have a backlog. And I think that's like, I grew up to find that being weird. Like as soon as I'm like, let's put it out. Let's get it out there.
Yeah, because there's two schools of thought, I think, in that sense. Like, okay, so like there's this fear of missing out, like the FOMO of like, okay, well, like I have this content and, it's like, if I don't put it out now, then I'm going to be forgotten. If I don't put it out now, then the algorithm's just going to like push my content down. But I feel like the winning strategy is always going to be put out the quality content when you feel it's right to do so and follow your own schedule more than the schedule of like YouTube or Instagram or TikTok or whatever. Cause like, kind of going towards like the burnout topic. I think that if you are trying like way too hard, like you're putting in like so much effort that you always feel like, okay, it's done, drop it. All right, it's done, drop it. If you feel like you're like just chasing your tail, like you're just doing this circle over and over and over again, you're just going to expend way too much energy trying to keep up with the trends and eventually going to tire yourself out and not be able to do the quality of work. Like to me, I want to populate my YouTube channel with good content, but I'm putting it out not super consistently. Like I'm putting it out more regularly, but it's not like on a very consistent basis, because if I don't feel like it's ready or if it's not the right timing, then I'm just going to hold on to it because I'm going to continue to rework it or reshoot it or relight it or re-edit it, remix it, whatever. Like, because I think that ultimately it's more the quality of the content than the consistency of the content that's going to actually get traction in this.
Yeah. I think that you actually answered a question I was going to ask, which is what camp do you fall in? The scheduled and keep it consistent, or let's just lay it down when it's time.
And if you can get a team behind you to make both of those things work, like if you can put out good quality content on a consistent basis, that's always obviously the best choice. However, if you're a solo content creator and you're having to wear the 5, 6, 20 different hats it takes to make good content, if you are scripting it, if you're editing it, you're editing the script, because that's a different job. If you're scripting, editing the script, if you're shooting it, if you're lighting it, if you're recording the guitars, if you're mixing the songs, if you're mastering the songs, you're editing the video, if you're doing all of those things, those are all uniquely different roles and require a different level of attention and unique skills in order to pull off being a solo content creator. That if you're pushing yourself to do the work of an entire crew yourself in that same amount of time, you're going to burn yourself out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also when you say crew, I'm not saying like, hey, rope your friends, but like just having a friend look at the content you're going to make before you put it out, or having a friend look at the script, or having someone just take a look and just be like, I wouldn't say cheerleader, but someone just to hype you up along the way.
Yes.
It helps. And sometimes that's like your best friend. Sometimes that's your girlfriend. Sometimes that's your wife.
Yes.
And all of those things, like, I feel like lead to that support group of, you know, being the content creator and being what you need to be. Because I've seen a lot of these YouTube channels and I've seen a lot of them come up consistently. And I just sometimes like I'm blown away at how people can just do it. I learned a lot in that consistency is important, but it wasn't important in the way that I thought it needed to be. When I learned, when like we spoke about consistency, or rather you did, and what I learned in being consistent wasn't that it didn't like make the algorithm like me more. It didn't make, but I did learn what I liked more. And I did learn what I needed to do to make content that I like to do more. And I also learned how to do that better and faster and more habitually, and how to do it at like the best times of day. I threw that whole entire the posting at a prime time thing out the window. Yeah. I said, if I'm going to do 30-day posts and stuff like that, like once every day, there's absolutely no way I can do this when I wake up. I wake up and I wake up to a lot of emails and a lot of like messages because I work with a lot of people on the other side of the country. And because of that, they just have 3 hours on me. There's absolutely no way for me to wake up with no noise.
Right.
So for me to deal with all that stuff, my personal creativity happens in the night. And if I want to be on the 30-day track and not have that mental headspace clog my head, I'll post in the night. I'll post at midnight, or I'll post at 2 a.m. And it just is what it is. I kind of like let that go. And I think a lot of people, what hold them back is like, I can't get on a schedule because my schedule can't be on the right schedule. And like everybody, I'm like, that's arbitrary.
Yeah.
Because that schedule has to be for what works for you. And like you said, like you're releasing content on your schedule, on when you think it's good and when you think it's right. And to be honest, like the Rembrandt lighting video that you posted, I was like, this is absolutely true. Because like I hate when like everything looks great and then you're watching a guitar player and they're like, check out this riff, boom, and then the neck is in shadow and then they're about to play. I was like, dude, I can't fucking see what you're playing.
Yep.
This is total crap.
Yep.
And then when you posted how you should do the lighting, I was like, I already do that. I'm in the clear. Steven thinks I'm not an idiot. I'm dope. I'm good.
Yeah. No, but it's funny. I actually saw he's a buddy of mine, so I don't think he'll mind me giving him a little bit of shit. But like Mike Stringer from Spirit Box, like I was watching a bunch of their videos, and I remember watching his video, like it was an earlier playthrough of one of their tracks, and you could tell that there was like key lights doing Rembrandt, and he was like, okay, cool. And he does this, like, you know, he looks over at the neck and like completely bows his head. So his like face is in shadows, and it's like, okay. Like it just wasn't like, it's like, I could tell somebody was like, okay, just look at the camera. They positioned the key light and they got it looking super cool. Then he looked over and it was just like, oh man, that like, it doesn't look good anymore.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't like look like it's an intentional choice.
Yeah. It's not giving the audience what they need, the guitar and the person.
Exactly. So yeah, that was a fun thing. I do want to iterate, like, I do want to like make something clear as well, because I know some people might listen to that and be like, yeah, well, Steven says, make sure it's like perfect. It's like, no. I never want things like, I never expect perfection out of my content, because the thing is like, you cannot say, oh, it's not perfect yet, I can't put it out. That is an excuse.
Absolutely. Because
I think as you illustrated with your 30-day challenge, I think that the more content you do, the more you will find what you like, how you like to do things, how you like to operate and create the content. You absolutely cannot wait for perfection. You have to just say like, this is good. This is as good as it's going to get. I have learned where I can call things good and let it go.
Yeah.
You know, it's not to say that I don't look at these projects later on and go like, I should have done this, you know, or I could have moved this over here, or I could have done these things. You know, that's the whole like analytical process that you have to do after you're finished with the project. Like you have to learn from your mistakes, you know, and make better next time. Right. So I just want people to not think that I'm saying wait for it to be perfect, because it's never going to be perfect. Like it's a balance.
You just gave me this, like, while you were saying, you just gave me this huge, like epiphany about how this should be thought of. I think content for a modern musician should be treated like a show. You have a deadline, you sell tickets, you've committed in, and you have like your rehearsals, 3, 4, 5 rehearsals before the show. And you're at the 5th rehearsal and you realize that the song sounds like the song, but it's not the recording.
Right.
What do? Do you cancel the show?
Right.
Or do you put it out and book the next show and understand? And I'm not saying like if you're utter trash, don't book the show in the first place. But at the same time,
caveat.
Yeah. There's that fine line. But if you have a show and you're going to put out content and you tell yourself like, I'm going to put this thing out, and you watch it as someone who has nothing to do with the thing that you do to see if like, hey, can they find anything wrong? Because chances are the other people you're showing, it's probably fine. And I know that there's always things to get better. You can watch my videos in that 30-day challenge. They improve. Like you can actually see me get better at drums. It's like incredible. But at the same time, like I'm making adjustments in the workflow. I'm making adjustments in the mix. I'm learning that certain things don't work. I'm learning how to film certain things. I'm learning that angles, like the one thing that I learned is on the left, like my crash cymbal always blocked my face and I couldn't find the right angle. So you'll just see the camera just keep on moving until it stays in one place for the rest. So you can see like, oh, this person's making that decision, fixing that problem.
Right.
And that's what every creator needs to be doing in their process. They not to nitpick themselves, but like find something they don't like, choose to fix it the next time. Find something they don't like, choose to fix it the next time. And if it's like something that makes your video unbearable, don't release your video. But if your video is not unbearable and like the thing that's bugging you is, you know, let's be real here. I've done the Rembrandt lighting thing for the first like 3 or 4 videos. And I thought this was fine until I like couldn't cut to my hand the right way and went, I fucked myself. I need to fix that.
Yep.
And then I moved to a 3-point lighting setup.
Yep.
And I learned that lesson the hard way.
Yes.
And that is one of those things that comes with trial and error and not being like a perfectionist. And I don't think you're ever going to make, or anyone is ever going to make the perfect piece of content.
Oh, of course.
Because people always have opinions. People have comment section. There's a like and dislike. Yeah. And it's how the world works. Like everybody would have done it differently.
Absolutely. And I think there's a couple of points to kind of like unpack there. I think that as musicians, if you want to be content creators, you have to be creating, I would say best way is every day. Like you have to be creating every day. If you want to be a guitar player, write a riff every day. You want to be a content creator, make a video every day. Doesn't have to be spectacular. You just got to do it. Like these are the tiny habits that are going to build and kind of compound on your trajectory towards that. Like, and every time you do these actions, it's basically a vote for that identity. It's not like, you have to not think about it like, oh, I'm trying to be a content creator or I'm trying to be a guitar player. Like, it's like, no, I'm a content creator. What do content creators do? They make videos, they make content. So, okay, if that's who I am, that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
So every time you do the same motion, and this is all like, I'm kind of pulling some points out of a book that I really like called Atomic Habits. So if you ever want to get into like how to create and build good habits, like that's the best book I can think of. But I'm kind of pulling points from that in that if you identify as something and you pull these, you do these motions, you create your content, you work with your riffs, you work more riffs throughout the day, like you're making a vote towards that identity and you're solidifying those habits towards that goal, and that just compounds as you go.
So the one thing I heard out of this is that I guess I'm going to rope Steven into a 30-day riff challenge, and we're going to have Steven review the best riffs and the best improvement.
I'm down.
So we'll probably check back in and when we start that and see if he's down to make that contest. Whoever wins gets a plugin pedal.
Like I say this with a warning. If you want critical feedback from me, best believe I'm going to tell you exactly what you need to hear. You may not like it.
I mean, you do have a virtuoso level guitar playing, and you've been a teacher prior to this, so you already accepted that card before you started publicly creating content.
I feel like I've done pretty well for what I've been given. I don't think I'm a virtuoso. I think I write some good riffs. I think I could pull off a solo if given enough time to write one. Mm-hmm. I definitely am not. I'm not a natural talent. I think that's where my trepidation comes in when people say that I'm a virtuoso, because that almost implies that there's like an innate talent. But like I've worked hard to get to where I'm at, and I think I do well. There's definitely a ton of people that are way better than I am.
I think talent, in the sense in the word, is super arbitrary, or like super, because like, let's be honest, when you're younger as a kid, or your brain just works differently, you're more apt and have like less noise. I have to worry about bills. Like when I was a kid, I had to worry about bills. So all that I needed to do was only worry about playing music, whether it was like playing guitar, playing drums, or going on LimeWire and stealing Adobe Audition, recording myself.
Cracked Cubase 5 flashbacks right there.
Yeah, right. And it's crazy. But when you're young, you care less, and that empowers you more. And you probably had a lot of those opportunities growing up to be good or to learn guitar. And now growing up, I've seen very, very older people than me pick up an instrument because they have the bandwidth. They learn and master that thing far more than I have. Just they had more time with it. They have the bandwidth, less stressors, less things that, get in the way. And then there's plenty of like super talented, I would say, elderly content creators out there doing guitar, drums, bass, or just comedy. It's just whatever you stick your head into and commit to doing.
Yes.
Like you weren't doing, how long have you been doing like audio in a professional sense?
Oh, in a professional sense, since 2016, 17, something like that.
And like that trajectory led you to work with one of the most prestigious companies in guitar.
Yes.
And that was a lot of just self-application. So when you talk about like talent, and you talk about like, I still think that it's just the concept of talent is, oh, this person's so gifted, they're so talented. It just implies that not normal people can do it. And I just think that, for lack of a better word, I think that's bullshit, because like you can just go on YouTube and you can just find something that'll teach you how to do something. Like watching you and you talking about like you like doing the woodwork, and I've been to so many other people's studios and they build it themselves, and that's something I've always stopped myself to do, like improve, like, and the more and more content creation becomes such a big part of just being a musician, I was like, shit, I need to make my place look good. I need to make it look this good.
Yeah.
And like those things like have it like, inspire me just because you can just see it. So when you say like, oh, I think talent, like, I don't think it's talent. I think it's determination. I think it's.
Yeah, it is. It is like, it's a mixture of having like a base level of talent, motivation and determination to sit down and work for something. And then like the caveat, like the cherry on top that's going to get you actually into the business is just being a good person that's fun to hang around with. Like,
yeah. I've noticed that more. And I think that leads me to the other question. What do you think it takes to work in the music industry, and how do you get in?
Working in the industry is, you have to be a self-starter. You have to be able to troubleshoot problems. You have to be able to learn things quickly and on the fly sometimes. You have to be able to, you know, put out fires when they inevitably happen, you know, and keep a calm head while doing so. There's a lot of people that I've worked with in the past where, like, if something goes wrong, suddenly they're flying off the handle and just like, like, you know, like just really like pulling up the energy. And I'm like, hey man, just chill. We got this.
Yeah.
Like, it's okay. It's not the end of the world. So, you know, being able to troubleshoot, being a self-starter, being determined. I think most important is just being a good hang, like learning how to have a conversation with somebody and not like make it awkward or weird, or like, you're just making sure that like the other person is having a pleasant time spending time with you is one of the biggest things. Because like, you know, I haven't really talked too much about this, but like, if you were to ask me, I don't think that there's any such thing as a self-made man. Like, and there was definitely like my journey, it sounded like, when we were talking about it earlier, it sounded very solo-esque. Like, but the thing is, like, I've had a lot of help and a lot of opportunities were given to me by other people along the way. And that's how I made my trajectory work, was because people liked what I did. Like, the work that I did was of good quality. I could always troubleshoot and help people figure out how to do the best, you know, edits or prep work or whatever. But ultimately it was the personality and being able to just like, hey, let's go hang out. Let's go shoot the shit. We'll grab a couple of beers, you know, or whatever, and like just have a good time. And I think that's like really, really important in this industry, is like, it's very, very personal.
Yeah.
It's incredibly personal. So if you're a mix engineer, or no. Say let's say you're a tracking engineer, right? You're tracking a band. You're spending, I don't know, a week, a month in a studio cramped with these musicians trying to pull the best performance out of them, you know, and you're with them hours at a time. You best be fucking sure that they're having a good time when they're with you.
Yeah, right.
Like, otherwise you have no hopes of making it this industry.
Yeah. Because like a thing that I heard most recently that really like impacted me, it's people don't remember what you do as a person. People remember how you make them feel.
Yes.
And I remember when the first time we met, all that I remember was talking to you, you being very hyped up because you were a speaker, and me, I had no idea how you were going to be, but my brain just went, okay, just talk to him, say what's up, give him the piece of content you shot, and if he's a dick, then don't talk to him.
Yeah.
And then, because I usually, when I was starting in this industry, everybody on stage, I had this perception that they were larger than life. Anybody put on that podium was like, they've been elevated for a certain reason, and that's why they're elevated and you're not elevated. Mm-hmm. And when I talked to you, though, just the way you projected yourself on stage, you didn't treat me like I wasn't an equal. You treated me like I was just another guy. And that made me feel like very welcome. I felt super like the boundary was broken.
Yeah.
And that type of friendliness, I think, is what makes people feel like, yeah, they want to hang out with you. They want to be someone's friend. They want to work in the industry. When you project, or not you, but like people project themselves that they got something to give, they got something to prove. I don't know what it is, but when it's a stranger and you've met a stranger who's on their mission, their mission is like highlighted. It's like on fire. And I know, and I've met people who try to project themselves and try to show that they have something to give to the world. And then they do it. And they do it in person at like meetups or like mixers or like events. And it's sometimes sometimes it resonates with certain people, but like for me, it's like intimidating, not in a, I want to work with you. Oh my God, you're cool. But it's like, well, that's a lot. And I think the older people get in the music industry, or not older, but the more they've been in it, they realize that it's a long game, that it's a laid back game, that it's about working hard and being serious when you need to be and being ready to go when you need to be. But it's not about being on all the time.
Right.
It's being ready to be on when there is something going on.
Yep.
And it's just wild because like that, I don't know what teaches a person that.
I mean, hopefully it's not through personal experience, right? Like you hope that people don't make those kinds of mistakes, right? So,
I mean, I definitely have made those mistakes.
Oh, absolutely.
like that.
I think there's always going to be like, pain is one of the best teachers, it's unfortunate, but it's like, sometimes you just have to go through the fire and just come out the other side and just know that, like, okay, that sucked. Right.
Well,
but like, I think an important lesson that I learned early on, and like, I don't know, I've heard this about me, that I'm usually a fairly quiet person. Like I'm fairly reserved, especially if I'm in a group of people that I don't know. Right. Like I'm much more content to pull myself back just slightly, just so I can see what is going on. And I think that has served me really, really well because, especially like at the summit, I think that, and you can graft this idea onto social media, Facebook groups, whatever. It's like, always act in a manner like you are being always act in a manner that you are being observed by important people. Right. Don't be a jackass because you don't know who is watching you.
Absolutely.
Because it could be somebody who could make your career is in the same room and looks at you being an asshole, and they're like, fuck that guy.
Yeah.
So like, I learned a long time ago that it also, like, you have to be kind to everybody around you, unless they're explicitly unkind to you or just dickish to you. Like that's a separate matter. But it's like, be kind to everybody around you, because you never know who you're speaking to and what they're going through.
Absolutely.
Right. Because like when we first met, like you were like the video guy, and I looked up to your content. Like I saw your stuff and I was just like, oh fuck, this guy's serious. Like that's awesome. Like
thanks, man.
You had some like slick stuff going on that I thought was like, I wanted to like work towards, right? Like I still don't think I have like the in-camera transitions like you guys.
I'll teach you after this.
Yeah. But like when we met, like I went into it with the, expectation. It's like, okay, be professional, hang out, have fun, be a good time. Like you were also like, I could tell you were stupidly busy during the summits. Like you are like just running around, like running yourself ragged almost the entire time, trying to get everything that you possibly could. So it's like, dude, that's gotta be stressful. Like having that empathy for somebody else and seeing somebody and knowing like, okay, that's their situation. Like I'm going to make sure that I'm kind so that when our interaction happens, like I can be remembered like that, but also I can inject that positivity. Cause like, there's some people at that convention that probably aren't thinking of that in that same way and aren't treating you with that respect and kindness that you deserve. So like, I always try to make sure to observe those sorts of things in other people and give them that, in our interactions.
I've learned this a lot at shows, like being like before Fortin concert photography or being a stagehand or being like my homie's drum tech. I've realized that whatever you as a human being with the wristband saying you're working or trying to be a part of that, to reduce the amount of friction between you, like not between you, but in the moment. So like if you're on stage and your band is playing and you got someone you're opening for, or you're running the show and you're the headliner and you're helping the drummer get the drum set out, you're helping the cabs up, you're coming and thinking about these things and not just playing when it's time to play. Those things deeply impact the synergy of the moment and deeply impact how people remember you. And it's also like, I like to think about like doing things like that as how you treat people too, like without saying or being like charismatic and stuff like that, just an action.
Mm-hmm.
Like one day, I'm not trying to like fluff myself up, but like an example was like I watched the drummer like cymbal fall, and it was just like he was playing it, so it was like integral to that, you know, Meshuggah like beat. So he was playing on like something that didn't have that like power and energy. And I just immediately felt like the energy die in the crowd. Mm-hmm. And I looked up, I was like, that sounds weird. And then I just noticed that there's this cymbal like not playable. So I just run up on stage because I had the wristband, and I just fixed it and walked off. Mm-hmm. I didn't like, and then I just like hid because at that point I'm like on stage and like I don't need to be seen. I'm not playing. Right. Like stuff like that. If not saying like everybody in the world go like jump if someone's thing falls over, but if you're unloading on stage, you see your homies, do that. Like that is an example of reducing friction of the thing, because like these are very high tension situations. Like before a show, I'm sure maybe you don't, but people have anxiety before they play, and that elevates their response.
Oh yeah.
And if you're there as a musician and you want to talk to your favorite guitar player, and they just came down from doing what is essentially 45 minutes or more of cardio activity or aerobic activity while like being emotionally vulnerable, and you go up to them trying to talk to them.
Yeah.
You have to understand that that's like, I don't even know what state of mind every player is playing. Sometimes like singers like will pour their heart out and they'll cry or they'll jump into the pit, and then you want to have your heart to heart with them, like, because that happens all the time. I've wanted to have my heart to heart to many musicians, and they aren't ready for it. And I don't think people understand that context. They went, I bought a ticket, you owe me.
Yeah.
And that I always found was very strange. I've seen it happen at the NAMM show. I've seen it happen at many different places.
It's entitlement. Right. It's expecting.
That's the best way to explain it. Yeah,
absolutely. I think that's, you know, kind of moving back to like the content creation ideas, like the entitlement to think that you need to have an audience, right? The entitlement to think that you deserve, you know, accolades for what you do, you know, and like when you expect it, like that's the worst. Yeah. That's the worst thing you can do for yourself.
So what makes you happy when you make a piece of content?